Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our MPF webinar, our first of the year in 2023. Uri, how you doing?
I am great. Happy New Year, John.
Happy New Year to you. We'll begin the formal presentation in just a few minutes at the top of the hour, but we like to start a few minutes early just to let everybody know they're in the right place and banter with our panel if we have some guest speakers. So we just start a few minutes early to get everybody set up and ready to roll. Our session is being recorded, and we'll send you a link to that recording as soon as it's available. And we'll have some handout materials, which will include survey results, polling results as well, that we'll distribute tomorrow, Friday at the very, very latest. So you can share these recordings and this material with others at your firm if you feel it worthy. And I know many of our participants do. We've got about 165 managing partners, firm leaders signed up for today, which is pretty good participation coming into the new year. Uri, what's going on with you? You got some stuff in the works, I know, in terms of your offerings to law firm leaders.
Yeah, we're busy. People are hungry for that community, for that moving past. I don't know, whatever the last 3 years has been. It's sort of that sense of, and I've done a number of in-person programs. You did, of course, your in-person programs. I mean,
Yep.
we're coming out of it. We're coming out of it. So there's this real thirst, I think, for reconnecting with the community in person, on Zoom, but just a lot of energy. I'm seeing a lot of energy.
I agree. I think, everybody went to virtual conferences and webinars because we really had little choice. And
Yeah.
I think people are very eager to get back to in-person events, but folks are going to be a little more deliberate before they, pay that registration fee, buy that plane ticket, make that hotel reservation, because, it's kind of convenient to click, you're here at the meeting and, you can meet other people. We do a webinar format, so our audience is muted, off camera. So we're in a more presentation style just because there's so many people that come to these sorts of things. So let me go ahead and jump in. I see we're right at the top of the hour. So welcome everybody to our first MPF program of the new year. We're calling it Big Bold Predictions with capital BIGBOLD for the coming year. And Uri Gutfreund and I are going to share our thoughts. And we're going to seek some of your thoughts as well as we work through our materials. So Uri, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, John. Great to be here.
It is great to be here. It's better than not being here, I suppose. So welcome. It's just the two of us today.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. We were going to put on top hats and do champagne toasts, but then Uri and I said, at what point do you stop saying Happy New Year? And so Happy New Year, everyone. Before we jump into the program, a few shameless plugs about what we have going on, our webinar series. We're here today on the third Wednesday in January, and we'll be presenting these. Our intent is every month on the third Wednesday. If you have thoughts for topics, speakers, let us hear from you. Our leadership conference is set for May 3rd and 4th here in Atlanta. It will sell out. We put it on last year for the first time in a few, and people are eager to reconvene and get back. So if you want to attend this conference, we've opened registration. The agenda is still a work in progress, but you can register early and take advantage of our early bird registration fee if you're interested in that program. We do a fall symposium in Chicago. Details will be published about that in the coming months, our newsletter, our website. And if you come to one of our programs, we offer you the opportunity to participate in our listserv. We got about 210 managing partners in there, and we do some Zoom calls on a monthly basis. People really seem to like. Today's program, why we're here, is Big Bold Predictions. We've got 165 strong registered for today's call. We're going to share the survey results. We'll have polling questions, all of this recorded, and we're really interested in your feedback. So when we shut down from today's program, you'll be directed to a link. please take a few minutes. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like, and give us your thoughts on topics, speakers for future programs. Our next MPF webinar will be right after Valentine's Day on February 15th. And we're going to see what's going on out in Arizona and Utah with their alternative business structures and their regulatory sandbox. It's been almost 2 years. And Uri, when we did this program 3 years ago, I predicted that MDPs, alternative business structures, would sweep the land.
You did.
I missed the mark.
You did.
But we'll catch up on what's going on out there and what may be coming to a jurisdiction near you in terms of alternative business structures. We
Hey,
always
John.
do these.
Hey,
Yeah.
John. Hey, John. Hey, John. Just before we do our first polling question, there is in your tool bar on the right side of your screen where you can put questions in. You know, when we do get into their big, bold predictions, we do want to hear from you. You know, if John says something that's totally wrong, we want to hear from you. I mean, John sometimes says wrong. I mean, he already admitted to one, you know. So put it in the question box, and I will remind John about, you know, how the audience strongly disagrees or agrees. But in that question box, and I'll try and read that in.
Uri, I can't help it. I have opinions, you know, I have opinions, and I'm usually not very shy about presenting them. You know, our first polling question, just so everybody knows how to work it, is the obligatory how many lawyers at your firm? And this is usually helpful to our guest speakers just to give them a sense of the firm sizes represented. So I often joke that sitting in Georgia, we know how to count votes. So your votes are coming in and I'm counting. And here's
it's an evergreen joke, John. That's an
I
evergreen
know,
joke.
and I'm beating it to death. I got to stop, right?
Well, you guys have a lot of elections, that's
So
for sure.
here are the firm
Okay.
sizes with us today.
Okay.
And that's fairly reflective of the firm sizes participating in these calls. We are square on mid-law and smaller firms. We'll get a smattering of big firms participating, but we really try to be that invaluable resource to the leaders of smaller and mid-sized law firms. So this is fairly indicative of the types of folks that come to our conferences. So appreciate your weighing in. And Uri, did I close the polling question like I'm supposed to? Did I do that right?
You did. We are up to registration question number 1. When you registered.
Yes. When you registered, we asked you a couple of questions, and this was a drop down. And in 2023, what's your firm's top concern from the list below? And people seem to be a little skittish about a potential recession. 40% say that's their top concern from this list, attorney retention. Uri, would you add anything else to this list that you find a top concern for leaders of smaller, mid-sized law firms around the country? Am I missing anything?
I think firm culture is sort of something that we've been talking about for so long, but I think if we phrase the question, what's your firm's biggest concern? I think we maybe would get a slightly different, or what's your biggest challenge this year? You know, because I think the economic downturn, I hear from a lot of clients who say, yeah, I'm concerned about a downturn. Nobody wants a downturn, but, you know, we don't really zoom up in good economic times, and we don't, you know, jump down on the bad economics. So is it really a day-to-day biggest worry? Not if I'm well diversified. So I think firm culture should be much higher.
Yeah, and what can I do to control the national economy?
Right.
You know, if I'm the managing partner of a mid-sized law firm, there are things I can do to retain talent and to plan succession and to adapt to remote work preferences. Hard for me to control inflation and the unemployment rate. So yeah, how we phrase that question does, you know, lead to different answers. Here's the second question we asked you when you registered, and we're going to reveal this one later. Because Uri's got a prediction around this, and we don't want to poison the well here, but we ask about rate increases. What are you doing this year versus last year in terms of your average rates per timekeeper? So we'll come back to that one a little while. How do you think your firm's going to perform in this year compared to last? 40% of you say we're going to do better. So it's interesting. We've got this concern over a recession, but
The same
we're not
40%.
so concerned
Same
about how
40%.
our firm's going to perform.
Yep.
So, Uri, there was an interesting comment we read among our faculty and their predictions, our registrants, and recessions are good for mid-law. Was that one of the one of the predictions?
I didn't see that one.
We talked about it, Uri, and it was the fact that mid-law firms are pretty recession-proof.
Yeah.
Corky.
Oh, yeah.
So we asked you as well when you registered your predictions, and here's a smattering of what folks had to say. Many of you are predicting more M&A activity. We agree. Many of you are predicting big law layoffs. It's already happening. Many of you predict mid-law is going to weather the storm pretty darn well. We agree. Return to normalcy. Return to volatility and uncertainty. What recession? And senior lawyers are going to start moving toward the door. Were among the predictions that our audience had today. I think some of those are interesting. Uri, when you read through those predictions, anything? I just tried to kind of take a smattering, a good cross section of what our folks had to say. Was there anything that jumped out at you?
There were a few comments, not surprisingly, where people were suggesting or saying, "Will the new generation ever learn?" Quite, comments like that. In terms of predictions, wishes, I'm not sure. But this is pretty much the summary what you put up.
When you say, "Will they ever learn?" Are we talking about will they ever learn about a work ethic?
Yes.
Is that where you're going with that?
Yes. Yes.
Appreciate a job, stuff like that.
Yes. Yes.
We're going to talk about associates and the challenges of attracting, retaining your talent, both your associates and on up to your junior partners, because it's a vexing issue for a lot of mid-sized law firms. Here's our first prediction. We've got 10 big, bold predictions. And here's my first, which is the great experiment will continue. And that's, how do we set up our remote work policy? Culture, the collaboration, the teamwork, the sharing, the mentoring, so important to running a law firm. Yet our people want flexibility. And how do we balance these two seemingly kind of disjointed desires? Firms are trying to figure it out. We did a program in Chicago. Uri, you were there. Many of you on today's call were there. Where we had the managing partner at Womble Bond talking about their DC office, where one of their bigger offices, one of their more expensive offices in terms of rent, and they went from 18,000 square feet down to 6,000 square feet. They're saving almost $3 million a year in rent. The shareholders like that. And as their leases come up, and they have dozens of offices across the country, they're experimenting with different workplace models and trying to figure out what works best for them. And I think, a lot of factors go into this. Your clients, do they care that you're in the office or not? The types of practice. I don't think insurance defense clients care so much where you're doing the work, but estate planning might be a little different. When your lease comes up, we've been saying through our webinars and meetings with managing partners, it's so important to tune into your people and their preferences and weigh that in to whatever it is you decide to do in terms of policy. And do you have firm policy? Is it left to the individual office? Is it left to the practice group? Does each partner have a different policy for his or her team? Do you have different policies for paralegals or legal assistants? Again, firms are trying to figure this out and making plenty of missteps along the way. Uri, what say you? We've talked a lot about this great experiment.
Yeah,
You're in New York City.
The way I see it is this great experiment is really the new norm. The new norm is to constantly talk about this. I mean, it really is a big challenge. There's no clarity on this, and I think that's going to continue. Look, I think we've worked out of office buildings for, I don't know, 60 to 80 years, and then the last two and a half has been a little in flux. What will win? I don't know, but this is something. It's a big issue. It's probably the number one administrative issue of on the day-to-day that impact our managing partners. So it's certainly front in mind, and I think to the extent that our bold prediction that it will continue to be an issue seems very much unsettled discussions.
My prediction, it's still an experiment. We haven't figured it out. And what's right for one firm may not be right for the firm, across the street. It really is an individualized sort of thing, I believe. But I was reading an ABA study that something 45% of associates are willing to walk if you make them come into the office. Ooh. So tuning into that, do you have any advice for the leaders of mid-sized firms, Uri, how to figure it out for their firms?
Well, listen, draw your lines, figure out what's important. I think you gave a great example. Some practice areas and some groups need to
Yeah,
meet more than others, right? Forget the
yeah.
clients. It's just your group, your practice group might work better for you all together. And that might be a red line in the sand. And you say, we can't be remote, and others maybe don't and don't have to.
I have a group that, they're trying to do the right things, and these unintended consequences. This firm here I work with in Atlanta has one policy for its paralegals in terms
Mm,
of they need to be in 3 days a week, but the legal assistants, it's 4 days a week.
yep,
And my, has this caused a war between the paralegals and the legal assistants
yep.
because there's preferential treatment or what have
Hmm.
you. But a lot of well-intended efforts, but some unintended consequences as firms try to figure out what's right for them. So our first prediction is that we're not going to figure it out. We're still working on it, tinkering with it, and um, tune into what ALA's got going on. Cushman Wakefield publishes some great stuff about the law office of the future. Here's my next big bold prediction, Uri, and we're going to alternate a little bit as we go through our 10. And that's the big law is making big adjustments. We're starting to read about pretty big time layoffs at some of the larger firms. Anticipating an economic downturn, particularly transactional corporate M&A type practice areas. Layoffs are coming. We read about them, and the headlines are out there. At the same time, we're also reading about eye-popping raises and bonuses for associates. So we're laying them off on the one hand, and then we're paying them a hell of a lot more money on the other. Maybe we're seeing some talent free up that might not otherwise be available to you as a mid-sized law firm. Uh, Thomson Reuters just published its State of the Profession report for 2023. We'll feature it in our weekly, I think Friday, if we have room for it. But there's some interesting stuff in there as firms look to the future and what they're going to do with their lawyers, with their support staff, and changes are coming to big law. Uri, you're in the big city, home to many of big law.
Yep.
What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
You know, um, I, I don't have so much insight into what they're doing. I will tell you more than anyone else. I mean, it's very well covered in the press. The bonuses are eye-popping. The layoffs are certainly here, have probably been here for longer than we've read. Now it's certainly in the public news. I think that the insight for our group today, the insight for mid-law in reaction to big law is that big law has not become a better place to work over the last 3 years. It has not. And so there are still lots and probably even more people who want to get off the big law treadmill. They don't treat them well. They obviously have to bill a tremendous amount of hours. If you're not a superstar there, they're not treating you well. So that's the opportunity for our participants is big law has not become a better place to work. And if anything, it's become a worse place to work. There's a lot of lip service because that was in trend, but the reality on the ground, it's not so. There's tons of opportunities. And John, you and I were talking the other day. You have clients, we have clients where that is the opportunity.
Yep.
They're still coming from big law, sometimes despite the money. Money isn't everything.
Yep. It's not everything. And I picked up the term among a litigation boutique I was working with this year, disposable billing units. That's what I felt like when I worked at
Right.
Big Law. And here at
Yep.
this smaller firm, I decided very deliberately to make that trade-off between lifestyle, work-life balance, and the big bucks.
Yep.
And I like the smaller mid-sized firms where I know my colleagues, they care about me and my development and my career satisfaction and that I'm happy and doing okay. They care, unlike Big Law, which looks at me as a little money making unit and it really doesn't care much about what happens outside the office. Uh, but then, Lurie,
John.
we were talking and anticipating the call. Do we want Big Law's discards?
Hmm.
Uh, is that a play we want to make? We're gonna pick up some of these young lawyers that Big Law's laid off because we offer a better place. Do we want Big Law's discards?
Yeah. I don't think they want the discards, John, but I do think that Big Law's reduction has a different flip. The other side of the coin is that they're not pulling your people as much. So I think from a retention perspective, the change in Big Law is going to be significant. So I think you'll have a little less pressure on your people for them to steal your people in what now is going on at Big Law.
When I often suggest to many of my clients, mid-sized firms, do you need the best and brightest from the top law schools? Do you really need that level of talent for the work you do? And to compete with the big firms for the big bucks and the best and brightest from Harvard and Yale and Columbia. If you're running a defense firm in Des Moines, Iowa, maybe mid-tier graduates from mid-level law schools will do the job just fine. And you don't need to be reaching for the best and brightest, competing with Big Law for that talent.
John, we have a comment, a couple of comments that came up in the box. I apologize, I missed two of them, but I got them now. A couple good points. People are still going to work on their work from homes. And then Suzanne said a great point, which is we were talking before about the great experiment. And she reminds us, and she's 100% right. And I see it in a lot of firms where it's okay to change your policy
Oh yeah,
to make a
absolutely.
different decision. I think, sort of as we've gone through the last 3 years, I know a lot of firms that said, okay, starting July, starting September, and we've had to redo those or rethink all those hard dates so many times. And so I think I told you, John, I have a client in New Jersey, mid-sized firm, who went to 5 days a week in December, except he had a revolt. So he went back to 4. And that's okay.
Right.
That's okay. Had to change that up a little bit. Listen, it wasn't worth it for that extra day a week.
Well, I think being intentional, the term I picked up is intentional flexibility.
Hmm.
Being intentional, deliberate, thoughtful, as opposed to reactionary, ad hoc, inconsistent.
Yeah.
Be deliberate and thoughtful about what you're doing, why you're doing it. And it is okay to make mistakes. Lawyers hate to admit that they occasionally make mistakes, but it's okay to say, hey, we blew it and we're listening and adjusting based upon the feedback we're getting. I think that's okay. You don't have to make it perfect, get it right coming out of the
Yeah.
gates. Here's our next one, Uri, which is this is your prediction.
Yes, we project our bold prediction for 2023. Prediction number 3 is that merger mania will take off again.
Oh,
We've
Uri,
seen
that's
lateral.
bold. No one sees that coming.
I didn't say it was a surprise. It was bold, though.
Yep.
Merger mania. We had seen it before COVID. COVID sort of put a kibosh on that. Not the laterals. Lateral market's been hot, but
Yes.
the wholesale mergers, the wholesale groups of lawyers switching from firm to firm. I think last year we saw the largest one in New York of 75 lawyers moving firms at one time. That's a huge move. So we're going to see that really take off now. We're going to talk actually our other predictions I think we'll have some impact on this, right, John? But
Yep.
merger mania is back. Undoubtedly, you will get more offers as mid-sized law firms. You will hear more talk about this. You'll get more approaches. This is really something that we're seeing already starting to take off. This is going to be big in 2023.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I have several situations where a subset, a practice group within the firm's been approached to join Big
Mm-hmm.
Law and causing all sorts of disruption within the culture. What happened to the loyalty and the all for one that we all pledged to and that blood oath we took when we started the firm? And so,
Yeah.
but it's coming. It's coming, and you're going to get approached regularly by big firms wanting to come to your market or acquire, a particular skill set. We've already read about Constangi. This, I think, went down yesterday, the day before,
Yep.
acquiring a 32 lawyer group from Lewis. Holland and Knight out of Tampa, Florida, acquired Waller Lansden, one of the big Nashville firms, to create a 35 office, 2,000 lawyer firm. That was announced recently. If you look at a town just like Nashville, we've seen K&L Gates come in there. They don't come in with out of towners. They set up with a group of locals to establish their presence. Spencer Fain has marched into Nashville. Womble Bond Dickinson has marched into Nashville. We're seeing this in second tier cities all over the country, beyond Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Dallas, Atlanta, the normal suspects. We're seeing it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Salt Lake City, Utah, Des Moines, Iowa. Big laws coming in and disrupting and taking on what were dominant, local firms to establish their presence in the market. So this is coming. And one of the questions we frequently ask at conferences is this one, and let me pull it up, is how do you feel about your firm and merger? And from these potential
John launched the poll.
answers, it's
Launch the poll.
okay. It is launched. It
John
is
launched the poll.
okay. It is launched. The results are coming in.
Okay.
Um, the most my firms I work with don't want to be acquired. They want to remain self-governed entities. I think that's a tremendous opportunity, but you need a plan, you need leadership. Hope and pray is not the strategy. So as we close this poll, I've got about 70% of you having voted so far, 165 on the call. We're at about 70% in. And here's what you all say about mergers, acquisition of your firm. 10% of you are okay if we get acquired by big law. Okay, be deliberate, be intentional, command your price. And why don't you go out and talk to some big law firms? Don't wait for them to come knocking on your door. Why don't you go out and be more proactive instead of waiting? Create those opportunities. 31%, it's okay only if we're the dominant firm. 50% aren't wild about the idea. So most mid-sized firms don't necessarily want to sell out. So Uri, what do you think about these results in terms of mid-law and their attitudes toward merger?
90% say no. They don't want to be acquired into another firm, into a larger firm. 90%.
I think what often opens the conversations is the lack of a succession plan. We haven't done a particularly good job investing in our young people and their hunting skills. We haven't replaced the leadership within the firm. And so we're starting to get a little desperate about what happens next. And I say be in charge of your future. And that means a plan. It means leadership. It means, investing in your people, all those good things that Uri and I talk about all the time. So that's attitudes toward mergers. We've got one more polling question. No, we're moving on here. That's it on the polling questions for now. Merger at your firm. The regulatory sandboxes. This is my slide, and I already admitted I blew my prediction of 2 years ago, where we looked at Utah, Arizona, the regulatory reforms, and among my predictions is this will sweep the land. California's next, then New York, and then the multidisciplinary practices will command the land, and it just hasn't happened. And Florida put the kibosh on multidisciplinary practices in a big way when its board of governors voted 49-0 against multidisciplinary practices. California was looking at it closely as well, and it decided to take a pass. A couple of states, Washington State, North Carolina, still looking at it, but we're just not seeing this reform and these alternative business structures, popping up all over the place. Just hasn't happened. Uri, do you have any comments about MDPs?
I mean, there's a lot of pushback from the profession for it. There's
There
a
is.
lot of talk. I think we had read a lot of the literature when it was talked about in Utah and Arizona that it's for the people. The people want it. The people will benefit from it.
Access to justice, absolutely.
So so it seems to be for right now that voice is being subsumed by the larger. Everybody needs a good lawyer. And so we'll see. I think that'll largely go with political wins, not something we really can control. We'll see which wins out.
The jury is still out on this one. We're going to do a webinar on this topic next month. So if you're interested in learning more, we have Whitney Cunningham. He used to be president of the State Bar of Arizona, and a managing partner named Carson Pearson in Salt Lake City. They're going to bring us up to date, what's going on in their jurisdictions, how firms are reacting, are there any unintended consequences? Should be a good program. I'm really interested in this topic. And I thought we were seeing, multidisciplinary practices, coming along. The big four accounting firms want to be practicing law, and then Enron, kind of hit the fan, and that conversation went away. I thought it would come back. Market forces would insist on it, but it's just not happening. Just not happening. So that covers us on multidisciplinary practices, not really making a big, bold prediction, but just suggesting stay tuned. Stay tuned. And if you're interested in learning more, show up at our webinar next month. Uri, this one's your slide, and I love this picture. Look familiar?
Yeah. Associates will want it all. I think that almost all of us have felt that this past year. And I think the mistaken impression is that this is a timely and that time shall pass. I mean, I heard that a lot over the last, just give it a couple more months and the layoffs will start at big law and then the associates will change. And I don't think that it'll be that way. So my big, bold predictions on associates is they will continue to want it all. They will continue to want the money. They will continue to want the schedule. We talked about that a little earlier. Many of them will want the schedule. Some of them will want to come into the office. That's what I'm hearing. Some of the juniors realize it's not in their interest to be completely remote, but many of them will still want to be their schedule of remote. And this is the kicker that obviously is not to everyone's delight, is they do want all the good stuff that historically was given to partners, but the associates want it now. They want the money, they want the information, they want to be treated like none of us ever imagined ourselves being treated just 10 and 20 years ago. My prediction is this will not change. It will not change. It is something that will only be adapted to by firms. It will be something that we understand a little differently. As somebody said at our recent program in New Jersey, John, it's time that us as managing partners, we realize they don't want to be like us.
That's right.
They don't want to be like us. And maybe for the first time in a few generations, they don't want to be like us. So a lot of those levers that we thought Associates used to work really hard, or associates work really hard, says the mantra, because they want to be partner one day. Well, that all falls apart if they don't want to be partner one day. So we have associates that are going to want it all. And my big bold prediction is this will not change. Competition will not change from your peers. Attrition from these associates who want to change their mind and go to dental school or become a barista. Or I heard yesterday somebody went to chef school, high paying associates. So that's not a competition that we can solve in a very simple way. It's something I think we have to adapt to. And I think this is just going to continue and not going to abate, even with the downturn that we've been perceiving. What do you think, John?
Well, definitely. I hear frequently the laments of managing partners. These kids are asking questions I wouldn't dare ask when I was
Right.
a second year associate. They do have questions. They want mentoring. They want transparency. They want evaluation. They want a clear path to partnership. And not all of them want to take that path to equity partnership. It's vexing. And Uri, you and I were talking about, the importance of hiring the right people, the due
Absolutely.
diligence, where you go to find your talent, the onboarding of your talent. What are you looking for as you assess talent? We talked about the summer associate program. That's the
Yeah.
long play. But that I hear it again
John,
and again from my clients. That's where we find the kids that are going to stay around and become equity
yes.
partners at our firm. Our summer
Yes.
associate program. We get to know them. We get to test drive them. We know what we're getting, and they tend to be much more loyal as they ascend within our firm. And the higher we get up in terms of level of seniority, the more portability is going on. So, we're all looking for the laterals with books of business. Those people come and go. You want people who are good, who are loyal, who will stay. ABA, interesting study, 20% attrition rates among associates at law firms. 20%. 1 in 5 are leaving you every year. And it costs 1.5 times the annual salary. That attrition is very, very expensive to have people come and go and come and go. Uh, Finding the right people. I'm a proponent, if you guys have heard me, of psychological assessments as you look at talent and evaluate talent and place talent, because mistakes are expensive. And hiring the right people and investing in them, I think, should be a very top priority for mid-sized firms.
John, I think for too long, firms had the strategy. We're going to hire third years only. We're only going to hire 50 years. We're only going to, that model. And as everyone has seen in the last 2 years, the availability, and as you point out so correctly, the mobility of that group is so high. A lot of firms are moving towards hiring younger. It's expensive upfront, no question. They're hiring first years, they're hiring second years. Those people, as you point out, they're more loyal. They can be trained in the way you want. They come up through the ranks. We talk, and we'll talk more about succession. Guess what? That's what you want. You want homegrown talent. Homegrown talent is the essence and the heart of the firm. So I see some firms starting to make that pivot. Bringing back the summer program, hiring the first years, knowing some of them will leave. But guess what? They start at a much lower salary, and you can mold them into the lawyers that you want.
I so often use sports analogies, and we can look at baseball and all the free agency going on. Do you want to build a team through your farm system? Or do you want to just hire ongoing free agents coming and going, revolving door? There's no sense of loyalty, no sense of, I don't know. I think that consistency is an important thing. Those numbers, when I read them, were staggering. One and a
Yeah.
half times annual salary is what it takes to replace someone you lose. Attrition's so expensive.
Yeah.
So getting the right people in there and investing in them. Um, our next one moves up a little bit to your income partners. So often we use the term non-equity. I don't like that term. non-lawyers, non-equity partners, non-billable time. How about income partners? Just change that title. But as Uri mentioned earlier, not all of them want to become equity partners at your law firm. Many are content being glorified associates and not having the pressures of ownership, the book of business, the leadership, the financial obligations and risk of ownership. Perfectly content being well-paid employees their entire careers. 70%, 70, of mid-law firms have gone to a two-tiered partnership structure. We know the reasons why. And just about all the big law firms have moved to the two-tiered partnership structure. There's a few holdouts, but being flexible and offering a bespoke path to partnership and taking the non-equity path is okay. You get a title, you may get certain voting rights, you may get access to certain information, you get to come to the meeting, but you're not an owner. And so I'm a proponent of the income partners and wanting to accommodate their career goals, and equity partner at the firm may not be what they're looking for.
Here's what I see on this. I think if the last couple of years have shown us that some have selected out, certainly more now than in the past. Income partners have decided they just want to be an income partners. That is, as you said, John, their life goal, that they're set where they are. But I think the opportunity for the firm is now, because of COVID, it has been culturally okay and acceptable for income partners to tell you that, right? In the past, they would never tell you, right? They would silently say, oh, sure, I want to be an equity partner. And we'd all pretend, right? They would pretend that they really want it. You'd pretend that they pretend they want it. You pretend that you're going to give it to them. Of course, they maybe didn't develop into that material anyway, but it was sort of a problem that we had this, pretending going on. Now it's out in the open. Some firms don't, some income partners do not want to be equity partners, and that's okay. And that's the opportunity. And so we can now pivot and take that as an opportunity to have those discussions. And, we don't call them income partners to clients. You're a partner.
Right. To the outside world, they are a partner, but within the firm, they have certain rights, but ownership is not one of them. I think, being intentional, being flexible, offering different alternatives. I think a clear path to partnership and what it takes to be an owner is important, and spelling that out for people in writing, what it takes to become an owner, if you want to go that route. Years in practice, years with firm, book of business, ability to handle a matter start to finish, whatever it is, articulating very clearly what it takes to be an owner of this place. So often it's opaque, and we know it when we see it. The young lawyers want to know what's the deal. I worked with a firm, and I thought that there's no little downside to this, where they just created the different categories of lawyer. Associates are 1 to 3 years. Senior associates are 4 to 7 year crowd. And if we call them senior associate, give them that title. Hey, doesn't cost as much to give a title. Maybe we can bump their rates a little bit. Maybe they get a meeting or access to a bonus pool or something, but that senior associate category, what it takes to achieve it, what you get when you arrive there. Moving on up to non-equity, what it takes to achieve it, what happens once you arrive there. And same thing if you choose to become an owner, what it takes to achieve it and what happens next. So often, the young partners, they've never seen the partnership agreement. They don't know what they're signing, and yet they sign it, and they're lawyers. So I think, putting things in writing and being clear and creating different options within the firm is a good takeaway. Anything to add, Uri, before we go on to our next prediction?
Well, interesting. I'll just share a couple of the comments we've been getting. A couple of people, Doug and Sandy, both point out, this isn't necessarily a good system that these somebody would elect to be an income partner? What kind of job security there is there that long term? And I'm not sure there's an answer to that. Meaning it's correct. It might not be in their best interest, but we're just reporting what we are seeing as the way they act and the way they see. But yeah, you're right. Income partner job security might not be a great spot to be. I think Doug brings that point up well. Somebody, Sandy, had asked thoughts on partnership model as fewer attorneys are interested in becoming equity members. Yeah, John, what do you think if you're an equity partner and you don't have so many people who you see desiring to be future equity partners? How
Well,
does that
first
change your view?
I'd say you may have hired the wrong people,
Hmm.
and
Only found out
hire
now. Yeah.
people who want to be business owners,
Right.
not employees.
Right.
Hire people with an entrepreneurial spirit,
Yeah.
a strong work ethic. Um, Not everybody's cut out to be a business owner. And guess what? That's okay. But don't offer ownership to people who don't deserve it. And I see that happening frequently within mid-sized law firms. You make partner because you've been here 7 years and you haven't screwed anything up too bad. So we make you partner. You got to earn ownership because you deliver consistently over time and you're willing to take risks and invest in the business. It's just not an automatic thing. That's my take on it. Uri, are you there?
Yeah. No, yes.
I thought I chased you away there for a minute. Uh,
This is
succession
yours,
planning.
John. This
This
is
is
yours.
and this isn't that big, bold a prediction, but boy, folks, tune into succession planning. So often, I'm running into firms where the founding first generation firms, not always first generation, but often, where the founders are moving into their 60s, their 70s, and there's no plan to transition the business to the younger lawyers.
Yeah.
We haven't invested in their hunting skills. We haven't trained them up to lead. Often the senior lawyers aren't willing to let go. Life after law is scary to them. So this whole conversation around succession, like the conversation around firm ownership, doesn't happen.
John, why do you think that is? Is it the same reason people don't want to talk about life insurance, talking about their passing? I mean, why is it? Isn't it obvious?
I think it involves mortality. It
Okay.
involves control. It involves ego.
Hmm.
It involves money. I think there's a lot of things going into why senior lawyers often aren't eager to let go.
Yeah.
Larry Richard, our psychologist friend, talks about lawyers more than any other profession have a hard time looking at retirement, life after law. Politicians, movie
Mm-hmm.
stars,
Mm-hmm.
lawyers, they self-identify with the profession,
Yeah.
and life after law is scary. So I hold on to it. I hold on to it. And I see it frequently at lawyers
Yeah.
well into their 70s,
Hmm.
controlling huge percentages of firm revenue
Well,
with
let's
little
take a look at our
intention
group.
to letting it go. And we do have a polling question. What are you seeing around succession, Uri, among your managing partners in the tri-state area?
I'm actually seeing a slight increase in planning on succession.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I,
don't think
that's my
I don't
prediction.
think I don't think the I don't think today's managing partners are quite like their predecessors. I think some of them are looking forward to their retirement. I don't think that old 80-year-old, 90-year-old guy still coming to the office will repeat in the next generation. I don't see it as much. In some of those discussions, I have people tell me when and they say an age, usually 60, 65, 70, I'm not coming into the office. I don't want to be here. So I'm seeing, I think, a little turn on that. But the succession planning of the firm, that's a whole nother story and quite difficult.
Well, it's funny. I just did a firm retreat with a group, and we did some online surveys asking, the associates what their concerns were, the partners what
Yeah.
their concerns were, and succession planning was on the minds of a lot of the younger lawyers. The
Right.
founders were now in their 70s.
Yeah.
And so as we open up the firm retreat, the managing partner says, yeah, I hear a lot of us are concerned about succession. This is the founder, the grandpa, the franchise, the primary rainmaker. He says, here's our succession plan. I'm never going to retire. I'm going to live forever.
Oh gosh.
And people nervously laughed. And
Right.
then we went on to the rest of the agenda. But you're not going to live forever. And to
Yeah.
see this enterprise you've built
Right.
dissolve because you haven't done a particularly good job planning for the future, I think is I hate to see that, but I see it a lot. You
John, how
know,
does this group do? How does this group do?
I think it starts
Let's,
with a conversation, and you talk about it. So here's our polling question for everybody. And this speaks to the reason, well, let's see what you guys say, which is the percentage of revenue, keyword originated by lawyers age 60 and older. What percentage of your firm's revenue is contributed by senior lawyers? And our polling is coming in. And vote early, vote often. No, you can only vote once. We only let you vote once. And this is good news I am seeing. Very good news.
share the poll, John.
Hang on. Let me close it and share it.
Wow.
Frequently, when we ask this question, we see, 70, 80% of the firm's
Well.
business controlled by the seniors. That's
Mm-hmm.
scary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is very good news that we're getting our young lawyers out there hunting, fishing, building their books of business. That's a great thing, and it may speak to all the business development training that's been going on the last 20, 25 years. I'm shocked to see this result, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, you're a glass full kind of guy, John, but there's still a lot of firms here. More than half the revenue is by just about half the firms. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's
This is I think good data to see from what
okay.
when we previously presented this question. Here's another polling question that deals with succession. This is an issue I'm running into from time to time, and it's a tough one. And it involves unfunded retirement obligations.
Hmm.
Does your firm have such commitments to its retiring lawyers? And if so, is it a big concern? Or hey, no, there's no, you get your capital contribution back. That's about it. Do you have unfunded retire obligations? And if so, is it a major concern? Uri, I'm going to ask you to predict before I close this and share the results.
Well, I feel like this problem, at least what I've read, is that the problem is much less today than it was 20 years ago, certainly 30 years ago. So I think we're going to see most people say it is not a problem or we have a handle on it. I don't think that we're going to see a lot of major concerns.
And you are spot on.
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
spot on. I got a couple of firms I'm working with now. One's a first generation firm. One has been around for more than 100 years.
Wow.
And the seniors are owed money and they want to get paid. Here's what our partnership agreement says. And the juniors who are going to try to carry the firm forward say, how are we going to pull that off?
Yeah. I
And
think there were some,
it's
I think,
creating quite showdowns.
yeah, John, I was just
Firms
going to
I'm
say on
working
the listserv, on the managing partner listserv, I think there was some talk about some firms having a cap in their partnership agreement to those retirement liabilities that it can only cap out a certain year. And I'd hate to hit that cap, but at least that looks forward to that possibility
Well,
and prevents that from
or
ruining the firm. Yeah.
staggering the departures so we don't
Yep.
see 4 senior partners hitting the door in a given year. But,
Right.
we planned, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
space these out every 2 years.
Right.
Key man insurance sometimes is a workaround on this.
Right.
Oftentimes, those senior partners are willing to leave money on the table because they care about the legacy of the firm and they don't want to bankrupt the firm upon which they built their careers. So, giving a little and working way through, but unfunded retirement obligations, that's not a fun thing to deal with. So that's what we got on that. We're starting to see the home stretch here. It's 8 minutes before the hour. And let me move beyond that. And this is the C-suite, the chief operating officer, the chief marketing officer, your IT director, your HR director, the C-suite. Starting to read about a lot about how these non-lawyers can make you more money if you'll let them and empower them to make decisions. Hire good marketing people to run the marketing. Hire good tech people to run your technology. Hire a good COO to run the business side of your firm so that lawyers can do what they do best and what they enjoy most, which is practice law, bring in clients, mentor associates, and leave the business side of the firm to well-trained professionals. The C-suite, we're starting to see more and more empowerment. I just helped a firm in San Diego recruit a COO, and the numbers that are being put out there, firms looking for real COOs, eye-popping. Firm in Ohio, $400,000 a year. This is a 70-lawyer firm in Cincinnati. Similar, Raleigh-Durham, an 80-lawyer firm. It's $350 a year, $1,000 a year position. And that may be more than your lowest paid equity partners get paid. I think the conversation should be with your underperforming equity partners and not having this silly policy that we won't pay non-lawyers more than we pay our lowest paid attorney. Those attitudes are going by the wayside. Firms are recognizing what these people can bring to the table. ALA, there's associations out there for the C-suite, ALA, Legal Marketing Association, ILTA for the technologists, NALP for your recruiters and HR people. But hire good professionals to run the business side of your shop and let them do their jobs. Uri, what say you about the C-suite?
I see two differences for mid-law specifically. You pointed out one already, COOs, very, very popular, very much in vogue. I mean, the vision of the partners not having to deal with the operational issues of the firm, which is, of course, not anyone's specialty as a lawyer, makes a lot of sense. And then my last point is I'm seeing a lot of money going from marketing to business development. So hiring business development people, really, really, I said in vogue, but really popular. And people are looking for their best bang for their buck in that C-suite. And I think business development person, a good business development person at a mid-sized firm, amazing addition.
Here's another great addition, and I'm seeing it again and again, is the director of talent retention, director of professional development, that person who's going to take charge of your associate mentoring, training, evaluation program. These people earn their weight in gold if you hire good people and let them roll. And there's talent out there. We've recruited folks out of big law to a mid-sized firm. They want that number one chair, either business development, professional development, talent retention. I was at a conference in Cleveland giving a talk to a group of managing partners. One of the managing partner comes up at the end of the program. John, I want you to meet our newest employee, our director of talent success. Hadn't heard that title yet, but I thought it was cool. Good on them. Good on them. So hire good firm administration and let them do their thing. Money well spent. Uri, any more on that before we move on to the polling question we didn't show, question number 2, which speaks to your rate increases for this year. And what are you doing? And 70% of firms are adding 5% or more per year or per hour for their average timekeeper. Pretty aggressive rate setting. 10% of firms are going to hold the line. We've been suggesting to smaller and mid-sized firms, be bold, be aggressive, go get your rates. You can justify it because we've had inflation. You can justify it because, our costs have gone up. We can justify it because everybody else is doing it. And look at here, you all are doing it pretty aggressively. But Uri, you have a prediction.
I do. My big, bold prediction is that clients will not pay your rate increases. I think the last couple of months really have gone, I think this is becoming more clearer over the last month or two. So going towards the end of the year, I think people were, oh yeah, we're raising rates. And clearly, as when you registered, you have all, or most of you have raised your rates, some significantly. I am hearing, and this is why I'm predicting, delaying in payments. If you haven't seen it yet, I think you will see delaying in payments and the old negotiations on engagement, negotiations, maybe questions on the bill, and then of course negotiations when it's time to pay the bill. I think clients will push back on rate increases in 2023. John, should they do the rate increases anyway?
Yes.
I know you are you, yes.
Yes,
I know you are you, yes.
If you don't ask for it, you won't get it. And the firms I've worked with have reported, if they've gone about a very deliberate program to increase their rates, have gotten those rates, if not all, a good part of it, and the files keep coming. Don't be bashful. Don't undercharge. If you're providing great value, great work product, great service, don't be shy about charging appropriate rates. And if you lose clients, so be it. I don't want to work for cheap clients who are going to argue about their bills all the time. And that speaks to your intake, perhaps. But the rates, I like standard hourly rate schedules, and anything coming off the standard hourly rate requires some sort of approval from a department head, an intake committee. Certainly, if we're doing contingency work, we need to be pretty selective. And I like intake committees if we're sinking big bucks into a matter. The firm's sinking big bucks into a matter, being selective at intake, and we just don't take on anything. And I often find myself saying to mid-sized firms, recognize you're selling a Mercedes-Benz, and not everyone can afford that. I'm looking at the time, Uri, and we have run out, but let me...
final prediction, your final prediction, John.
Is what recession? What recession? Wall Street Journal's pessimistic, and 61% of their, economy experts are predicting a recession in 2013. Conference Board doesn't agree. The Conference Board has GDP up slightly in 2023 and a pretty big rebound in 2024. And the Financial Times agrees. The jobless rate, we're at all-time lows in terms of the unemployment rate. We're at less than 4%. Inflation is slowing. What's the panic? The big panic should be over things we can't anticipate, like a war in Ukraine, a bird flu, or a pandemic. I think the economy is going to be okay unless there's some really, unanticipated jolt, like a war or a pandemic that throws a wrench in things. So I don't think the recession is going to be all that bad. And even if it does go down, we've seen over time that mid-law stands that test pretty good. All right.
Yeah, I that's above my pay grade. Above my pay grade on the economic, but I think your point is to
I just Googled,
managing partners. Managing partners should focus on what they can control, and I think you're absolutely right. I do have a lot of my clients who say, look, we don't make a ton of money when the economy goes up. We don't make when it goes down. We're pretty even keeled. It doesn't necessarily impact us, a well-diversified firm. So I'm not as worried about this. Wonder what our group will say on this poll.
Yeah, what do you think the economy's going to do in 2023, everybody? And results
Remember,
coming in.
this is
Vote
the
early, vote
40% said they
often.
were going to do better. So I think this can be a lot of optimism here.
And you know what? It's not as optimistic as our earlier question, which is how
Mm,
is your firm going to do?
right. Okay.
We're going to do pretty well, even if there is a recession. So it looks like a lot of
Share the
our
results, by
readers
the way. Yeah.
are eh, kind of right there, nice bell curve almost around that in
Mm,
terms of
yeah.
levels of optimism
Yeah.
around the
A little
economy. So
pessimistic. A little
there's
pessimistic. Mm.
I say what recession? What
John, John, take us home on a positive note.
I will do so, folks. Give us your feedback. When you leave us today, tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like. Sorry we ran a little long today. If you want to reach out to Uri or myself, phone numbers, email addresses are here. We will be sending handout material, all these survey results in an email. It'll either go out tomorrow, Friday at the very, very latest, and come back and see us at a future webinar. Next month, we'll be doing MDPs and what's going on out in Salt Lake City and Phoenix. Uri, say good night, Gracie,
Thank you,
and
John. Good seeing you. Happy New Year, everyone. I still say Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It's going to be a great year. Thanks, John.
thanks, everybody. Good to see you, and have a good rest of the week.